Hi. Okay. Welcome to today's session of the training. And I presume you all know we started yesterday. So the previous sessions can refer to the previous training materials for what we did yesterday. So today we're going to start with screening and interviewing. That's what we're going to be considering today: screening and interviewing. And you already have your slides for today. Please turn with me to the first page of the slide. Okay. Now, in this particular training, what we're going to be focusing on will be profile screening and as well as sieving. Then we'll talk about shortlisting and as well as interviewing in this particular section of the training. Now, this is more like our learning outline for today. And more importantly, like we know everyone who should attend this particular one is those who are really interested in the line of recruitment and human resource management. Okay, this takes us to the learning outcome, which we already have said it should be about everyone who participates and should understand how to thoroughly screen a profile, sieve through CVs, very much important, and as well as do profile shortlisting and conduct a credible interview. Now, let's go ahead to launch into the session. I hope not too fast, but it's important that we are able to maximize time to this training. We want to make it a little bit even more within the time constraints that we have. So we want to consider profile screening. Starting with that, please turn to the slide for the profile screening. So you can, I presume you're already on that particular slide. So now, for profile screening, what exactly, I would say we want to screen profiles. What exactly does it mean? What exactly does it mean to screen through profile? What should we be considering about screening profiles? Like, what does it mean to us? So now here, we say screening profile is just about scanning through all the list of applications that have been sent to match the profiles as against the requirements, as against the job description. We want to find out who is actually a best fit for the role. So in doing this, there are a lot of methodologies to apply, there are a lot of methodologies and also in the process. So it's much of a process and there's a lot of methodologies to it. And this is the basic support we're going to be considering today to help us understand how to go through this profile and at the end of the day, shortlist and then come up, interview to come up with credible list of candidates. So it's not just about getting applications and just going through them, and at the end of the day, we'll come up with an interview. Then you find out that all that has been done was just a waste of exercise, and so we just want to avert that. That's one of the major reasons why this training is being conducted. So please pay close attention, take note of your questions, and then towards the end of the session, we're going to be taking them. Okay, now, remember I already said a summary of what profile screening is all about is scanning through all the applications to get the applicant that is closest or the one that matches the job description that we have or that has been applied by the employing organization. So now, what are the steps? What steps should we take that's the next slide now, I'm on the next slide. What steps should we take to consider in the process of profile screening? What steps should we take? Which we talked about from the slides. We have CV, that's a CV or resume review, of course. So in the steps to screening a profile, you first of all want to start with screening through the applications that have been sent. You want to go through the CVs and as well as the cover letters. Find out, okay, does this one even look like what we really want for this particular role, or does it match for this particular job description that has been applied by the organization? So now this will help you understand so that you don't just run along. Then I must make it very clear here. It's very much important that you sometimes, like if you feel stressed, you might just take a minute to take a minute to ensure that you are okay before you begin to do it. One of the major reasons why I'm saying this is sometimes you may feel that you are seeing something that you are seeing A and actually you're seeing B. So this is very much important that you must ensure that you're in a good state of mind to start the process of go through the CV. So it means when you are stressed out, there's no point going through them because it's just a waste of time. Because somebody might just be writing, okay, I did this, and because your mind is fixated on what you want to look out for, you go ahead and you are seeing something else. So at the end of the day, it's not like a waste of time. So make sure that you have the adequate time for it before you proceed to start the profile screening. That start with this CV screening. Very much important. As you go, you understand what I mean by this. So you must make sure that you're in the right frame of mind, and as well as ensure that you have time to check through the CVs itself. Now, when we're talking about going through these CVs and reviewing them, is it just look through the CV? No, we want you go through the CV to observe key details. So we observe key details about the CV. We're going to be talking about those details as we go. So I'll just want to stay on this particular one, just like review the profile more in a very detailed format. Pay close attention to what you are looking for as against what is on that CV. So when you see a match, you want to consider, then that's what takes us to the next. I want to consider giving a phone call, or that is audio call, or it might even be a video call. But first time it's always good to start with an audio call, or even a text message. For me, I would prefer that you start off the text message, then possibly in the cases where there are no replies to those text messages, you just want to go ahead and make calls. But it depends. If it's very, very much urgent, you might just want to go ahead and just give the person an audio call immediately. Then to other advanced stages, you want to do a physical so that you know who you are talking to at the end of the day. For instance, there are roles that you definitely need to even start with seeing the person. Of course, when you advance through the CV itself, you want to go through audio call and also see the person you're talking with, if actually that fits into the role, because that's where we talk about the personal attributes and the rest of that. Then we want to go ahead to talk about the online profile search. Okay, I know this one will be very, very much expository and also somewhat how do I put it? But it is very, very much important. When we talk about online profile search, oftentimes this is not for all roles, but there are certain roles that it applies to. There are certain roles, more importantly, very sensitive roles, and even some roles that you may think that are not sensitive. The organization might want to do an online profile check on it. So sometimes when we talk about this online profile check, it falls under the group of background, that's background checks or background checks or verification. Now, what exactly does this mean for you to do an online profile check? Now, you might see that there are a lot of people who they love to defame brands. They love to defame brands. That is one. So, if for instance that person must have been an antagonist to that brand in the past, that you don't want to bring such a person into the organization so that they want to continue from where they start. So you see where these things can play out against some people who just go online and just type a lot of things about organization unfounded things they've not been able to verify, or even they can't verify, they cannot prove. So it's just because the mission does not want to take it up, they just let it go. So in these instances, these things can stand against those candidates. Then we also want to talk about perspective on key issues. Sometimes these things are silent. It's not something that is being said. As I said, it's somewhat controversial, but we need to talk about it. But so it's somewhat controversial. So now, perspectives about issues. But if the organization has an ideology, that particular ideology, if it counters, or if the perspective of the candidate counters the ideology of the organization, then they are not in the same. They're definitely not aligned in a particular direction. So that's why it's also my count against such person. So, but oftentimes this is towards the advanced stage, and there are certain categories we have seen this play out. There are certain categories where this play out. Now, so this practically will mean, well, it's more like, I think if I will summarize this, this is more like it's more like an exposition to a lot of people who just go online and just write things without even paying close attention to what they are writing. More importantly, they love to defame brands, just write things that they do not know about, and at the end of the day, without due cost to the fact that they are killing the brand, even with the fake information they peddle. So these things can work against candidates. So you don't want to bring someone at the end of the day when the thorough check, when a background check or background verification is being conducted on them, that particular non-props up, it destroys. So it just makes the whole process useless. So you don't want such a situation to play out. Then we talk about reference check. You want to, for instance, most people provide references on their CV. So you just want to talk to those people who they provide who they are provided the reference information. Now, most people make the mistakes of providing references that has nothing to do with their CV. That is always important. That people provide references that are in relation. For instance, references like your colleague, your former colleagues, your HR, or if your pastors, your imam, like people who have to do with what you're doing. That such that reference is is authentic, can be taken. For instance, if you worked with a previous employer, such a person puts forth a reference about an amazing job that you did. Wow, that's an amazing report. And more importantly, some people do not understand the fact that employers always have a way of connecting with each other. I mean, top organizations. So when they mess up in a particular organization, it will definitely find them out in the next place where they are going to. So there's a connect, but that's not what we are here to discuss. So let's go ahead to the next one that talks about background verification. These are the various steps. This is more like not just limited to all these 5 ones. Some people even do much more, but we have grouped all this screening into these particular 5 categories, and there could be much more. Now, we'll talk about background check. This talks about background verification. This talks about verifying. But before I continue, this is more like the advanced stage when we are very certain about the profile. We're very certain that maybe we want to take this particular candidate. We can be able to go ahead with this background verification, verifying their certificates, the certificate numbers, the institution, every single details that they have written down there. More like reaching out to the employee of the previous employers, want to reach out to them. So that's why it's at the later stage. So we want to ensure that we verify all the details that they are bringing in. So it's not just, at least we've heard about instances where people work with fake certificates, fake, everything just fake. People can just create, so you don't just want someone who can just go ahead and create things. So your thorough work is very much required. That's more like a thorough and trustworthy work is very much expected here, such that you can nib every fraud to the board before they even show. Okay, I think that brings us to this particular. Remember, when you have questions, always just take notes. We'll take them at the end of the session. Okay, so now this takes me to the next slide. What exactly do we screen for? What are we screening? So we're screening the CV and the resume. There's their cover letters as well. There's the CV that they have submitted, the resume. These are the critical information that they have submitted to you. Then their social media handles. That's why I sometimes ask you to provide social media handles, for instance. Now, take for instance, you're applying as a social media manager, and you'll be asked to provide your social link. Let's see your own profile. How have you managed it? That is one. That is part of the screening process. You want to become a social media manager, we don't even have a social media handle that is active or that actually has good results. Then I want to talk about the cover letter, of course, the ability to have what exactly do they have, the content on their CV, and what is the presentation. Remember the presentation also, because this is, I'm giving an example now. As a social media person, you should be very, very good with content. So you cannot tell me that you are a social media person or you want to work as a social media manager and you're unable to even write a great content or even market your CV in such a way that it's like it is properly formatted. Every single thing that makes a CV attractive, it's practically out of it. It's not included in your CV, and you're telling me that you're a social media person. Of course, a social media person should be able to engage very well. So your resume or your CV, your cover letter, is it very much engaging? Like, do I even want to know more about you? That's some of these things that you want to deduce from their CV, from their cover letter. Then we have application forms. Very much important. There are certain things in the application form. Sometimes most organizations have links that they ask people to apply, and when applicants apply, sometimes they don't provide complete information. They don't provide truthful information. They don't provide. So that's more like it may not be truthful, but have truth. Then sometimes they intentionally skip certain information. So all these are certain things you need to look out for. So when you see them, you just want to you already know where you need to profile such candidates when you see them. Then we talk about engagements. That these engagements are every other forms of engagement, more like the phone calls you're making, there's the audio calls, the video calls, the physical interviews, all the various engagement that you're going to have with that candidate. These are the places where you're going to be doing that assessment. Of course, the screening continues until you are setting or you until you have hired that particular candidate. So the screening process does not just end; it continues until you have hired that particular candidate. So have etc. There you can add to the list. Now I want to talk about the etc. Other criteria might come up because there are for different roles. Other criteria might come. This is more like a general one, which we'll definitely be looking to. Then, in addition to it, is also the social handle of each particular of the applicants. That's where it is required. So it might be social handle, that is one, or it might even be work portfolios. That's previous jobs that they have done, portfolios. For instance, a graphic designer, you need to have portfolios, things that they have done before. You want to see it. Then you want to talk about, let's say, civil engineers and the rest of it. So you want to architects want to see the things that they have done in the past, or they come with their not just only their CV, their CV or resume or cover letter. They also have to provide that's portfolios. So you want to look through the portfolios. Is it the quality of work that they have done before? Does it match the quality of work the job is intending to engage them with? Okay, this for the purpose of time, let's move on to the methods that can be used. We already talked about one of the major methods, which is via telephone calls. You want to call the candidates to find out, get more information about them, have a discuss with them. Now, there's a reason why we're going to talk about these calls, that is discussing the person prior to the interview. You might even have a great CV or a great resume right in front of you, but make conversation with that particular candidate, and you find that you're too much. You will not even be able to continue with the process because, of course, I acknowledge the fact that some candidates use professional services. I do understand that, but there are people who are unable to present themselves. There are people who are for roles that requires that particular skill. You definitely want to look out for it. For instance, if you're going to be a sales executive, you should be able to present yourself before you can even present a brand to a client or a prospect. Now, we'll go ahead to talk about the video chats. Of course, we want to have conversations with the person. You want to see the person you're talking to before you even have it. So there's no point arranging and scheduling for an interview. Interviews are always very, very much planned because it's not just only you now. You have a lot of people that are going to be on that particular session. So you don't just want to come and waste everybody's time. That's why you have to do this utility checks at the background before before every other the bigger ones come on set. Then talk about text messages. I already said earlier that one of the best ways of starting is just by text message. So a person even gets to, okay, know where this is coming from, okay. It's safe to reply, okay. So not everybody picks unknown calls or calls from unknown numbers. Then we'll go ahead to talk about email conversation. Of course, email conversation is very much important where there ought to be documentation. So as the processes scale, you want to use email conversations as well to make sure that there's documentation, there's records to every single conversation that is being done with regards to this screening, with regards to going through this. Then there's still others, more like we have the tests, or I think we have virtual tests, physical tests. We have even the other forms of tests that we put in place there, more like the aptitude test. There are a lot of tests that we put in place, but this particular one, physical test here means that the person has to be present to undertake this test. So all kinds of tests that you want them to do, you want to subject them to at least the places where there will be, of course, the organization will provide details about this when the time arises. So it might be when the time arises, the more details will be shared with that. Then we'll go ahead. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Where to look for what to look when you're going through the profile screening process. We'll talk about address and location. Now, when you're going through a CV, it's very much important that the CV or resume you want to go through, and you want to first of all pay close attention to where this candidate actually is. That is very much important. Now, if the job role, let's say the job role is located in Lagos, and somebody from let's say Benue is submitting, so the person is living in Benue and is also submitting for an application in Lagos. Now, this particular job role is urgent, and we cannot afford to pay for their transport to come over to Lagos to do their interview. So, what's the essence of going ahead with the profile of someone who lives very, very much far away? Some people going at the extreme. Now, let's use Lagos for an instance. We have if we have a place, we have a job location. Let's say the job location is at VI, and we have someone at Badagry. So you see that the distance is very, very far for such a person to meet up on a daily basis. We talked about this a little yesterday. So this is more like also a red flag. It won't fly because the person might be a very great profile, but at the end of the day, exhaustion will be a problem because by the time they are getting to the office, they will be unable to give their best about the fares, what is the fares that what it now costs, the T fares is very very is alarming now. So you want to pay close attention to that. It's going to be consuming a lot of all that the employee will be earning. So there's no point. It's going to make such a person feel they're just working without anything to show for. So we don't want that. Then let's go ahead and talk about contact details. I've seen profiles, I've seen CVs, resumes where people submit their CVs without phone numbers, where people submit their CVs without even an email address. So we just have to go back to that particular email to copy out the email that sent that particular. So it's very, of course, these things might play out. But in an instance, for instance, if there are no phone numbers to that particular email, how do you want to reach out to this person? Want to reply back to the email? Sometimes it is intentional. Take for instance, the person might not even be in Nigeria, or it might not be in Nigerian, or it might not be within the locality of that. So that when they apply, they intentionally remove the phone numbers. So when they remove the phone numbers, so you can't contact the person because if that person, if they put the phone number, you automatically know, okay, this is where this person is, because it's not within the country. And so, but I understand the fact that you are an international person does not is not wrong for an international applicant to apply. Of course, there are organizations that want expatriates. But what we are saying at this stance is where people deliberately remove information for the purpose of the seat. So that's you want to identify those kind of deliberate omissions and just ignore those applications. Then we go ahead to talk about biodata. Sometimes people also intentionally remove their biodata where their age limits to certain roles, or maybe if there's a gender specific role, and the person intentionally remove those information there. Now, I understand the fact that not every single person puts a lot of information on their bio on the CV. So at this instance is where those what I talked about that email conversations where a mail is now sent to the person that if the person matches the kind of person you want to go ahead. So while you are going through this, you're taking note of all these things. Maybe in this case there's no biodata, so you want to take note of okay, there's no biodata. I'm going to reach out to this person so that I can get the biodata and can proceed. So now, because take for instance, if it's a gender-based role, maybe it's a role that requires a female, and the male is applying for that role. So if you go ahead without making that verification, you just end up wasting all the time without even knowing that I'm just exchanging mails or talking with a male instead of a female. But when the other step of verification is that video call, is that phone call, and as well as the video call to ascertain, okay, this is the person that you are discussing with. Okay, now I just made mention so we don't miss it. I said while we're going through this the CVs, you want to take notes about every single thing that is not there, so you know, okay, these are things that if they are worth neglecting, if they are not, you want to continue. Then let's go ahead and talk about the personality from their CV. You want to understand the kind of person. I will not say I'm a detail-oriented person when on my CV is just very scant, and I'm saying on my CV I'm saying I'm a detail-oriented person. If I cannot give details about my job, what I do on a daily basis, how am I detailed to the person's stance? It does not make any sense. So if I'm saying I'm a detailed person, it should be written on my CV. So you see, from the CV, you're reading, you're deducing facts from that particular kind of person. So now this actually comes to play with most people who use softwares to write their CV and submit their CV afterwards through those software. You find out that those CVs are very, very scanty. And I must tell you, from my own experience, oftentimes a lot of people who use those softwares that provide scanty CVs actually do not get a lot of attention. It wouldn't cost you anything, even if you don't have a system or a laptop. You can just walk into a cyber cafe and draft a quality CV, draft a CV for yourself. You can sit back at home, write out every single thing, write out everything that is required. If you don't know, research online. We even have some materials here that can help people write quality CV. So they can research online, write out those details, and visit the cyber cafe and create a word copy and transfer to PDF. And that they're okay. So why using softwares that will not give you? I'm not saying softwares are not great, but if you're using softwares, ensure that you have adequate information there. So it's not just half information at the end of the day, half information, or at the end of the day, the CV is just scanty. So if I'm saying I'm very detail oriented, I should be able, it should be showed, it should display on my CV. Then, when I'm talking about results, maybe I say I'm a result oriented person. On my CV, I should be showing that I'm a result oriented person by my accomplishments, my achievements. They ought to be on that CV. Because if I'm a result oriented person, I'll be focused on what did I achieve when I work for XYZ organization, when I work for ABC organization. I'll be focused on that. So when I achieve those things for XYZ organization, ABC organization, nothing stops me from putting it on my CV. In fact, that I'm working to achieve them so that I can put it there and brag about it. That's what I want to do as a career person. Because my CV actually is a representation of me in my absence. That's what it is. So I should be able to provide all those quality information before the recruiter gets to meet with me. So you can deduce a whole lot of thing about the person's personality while you are still going through their CV. So I just gave you some hints. There is more. Then let's talk about the skill set. Now, the skill set should be the basic skills that are required. Let's say, for instance, we want a software developer role, a mobile developer role. The languages, the basic languages that we want, basic skills that we want, skills level, the things that we want you to be able to do should be written there. So, take for instance, we want somebody who can program it with C#, and you are a developer with PHP, and you have no knowledge about C#. So, I will not just say because you wrote developer and you write everything, every single thing, without stating clearly what software skills you have. I need to know what software skills. So, if I cannot deduce that fact, I definitely, maybe if I'm still interested in that profile, I should be able to give a call. I should be able to find out, okay, do you have this experience? But more importantly, it is more preferable to have a documented approach. So emails are very much preferable here. In the instance where there are skills gap or you can't find the skills you're looking for, the profile is great. You may want to reach out to that particular candidate to get details, to get details about their skills level with regards to software development, and just using that as an instance. Now, in a situation where no skills is there, or the wrong skills, or the inappropriate skill, not the wrong skills, the inappropriate skills for that particular role, what is listed there, then there's no point. So you save yourself the stress. Of course, I'm not going to list what I cannot do on my CV. So I will not just say I can do JavaScript, I can do C# programming. In fact, I can do artificial intelligence. I know all this. I cannot list them on my profile if I can't do them. So there's no point. Meaning, what you have on that CV is what you have on the CV is what I can do. That's exactly what I put there. Now, there are instances, I understand the fact also. I want to make a reference to the fact that some people do not update their CV. So, but I think that's not the fault of the hiring manager or the recruiter here. So I think that's the fault of whoever it is that's submitting an outdated CV or a CV that's not up to date. Now, let's talk about experience. Experience is very much important. When you're going through the profile, you want to find out, okay, what exactly did this person do in their places of work? What did they do? What did they do previously? What are they doing now? So does it align with what we want them to do? It's very much important. So you want to pay close attention to those things that you want that the option is looking out for them to do versus what they have done in the past and what they are currently doing. So if there's no alignment whatsoever, there's no point going ahead with those with such profiles, because it's more like it's an opposite. Then a different one is, should they be trainees or graduate trainees, or if the option is willing to provide training and does not mind if the person is just a fresher or does not have skills in that particular, they're definitely going to train, they're willing to train them, then that's not an issue because you'll definitely be notified about that, so they don't require experience. So that's zero experience. So now, but in an instance where it is very much important, once you have seen 1 to 2 years, it means the person should have at least 1 year doing the same thing. But where there is no need for that person, you see zero. That's where you are going to see 0 to 2 or 0 to 1 year there. That's where you mean the experience does not necessarily count here. We're definitely going to train the applicants. Okay, so now let's go on to talk about the academics. Academics is also very much important here. You want to take note of that. For instance, there are people who have OND, that's National Diploma. So would I say people who have HND, or maybe people make mistakes, they have HND, but what's in their CV is OND. That's more like, would I say possibly maybe it's, they did not update it once they got their HND, or two, they intentionally left that out. Possibly maybe the HND was not great. So that's one. The secondly, I want to talk about in the instance where the job role states that the minimum qualification should be a HND BSc. So you don't want to go get someone who continue the process with someone who is an OND or below. So this is very much important. I want to pay close attention to that. Then there are some rules that MSc, MBA, they want different kind of certifications. You want to pay close attention to those certifications that are listed there. Very, very imperative, such that at the end of the day, what you're doing is a great job. You're not wasting your time. You're not wasting the time of the organization. Neither are you wasting the time of the applicants as well. Okay, I think that is that. And this brings us to, okay, we're still considering where to look to. Okay, now talking about the accomplishments as well. This is next on where to look. Now, the accomplishments of that organization. Remember, I made some statements earlier when I was discussing about the personality. I talked about accomplishments. So if I'm an accomplishment-driven person, it should be clear on my CV. What was I able to accomplish for my previous employer? So I'm not going to say I'm a result-oriented person without me accomplishing anything. People use words that they cannot defend. So you want to pay close attention to those set of people. Then I talk about expertise. Now, skill set is different, is also different from expertise. So now we're talking about expertise. Like this thing, I can do it. I can close my eyes and do this thing. Like I'm very good at it. I become an expert in this thing. So maybe I should have years of experience doing that thing. So that's what we're talking about. A person has become an expert in this, and they can do it excellently well. But I don't need to make a mistake to get it right in the first instance. That's what makes the person an expert in the first instance. Where I understand the fact that people just use English and just say, okay, I'm a this expert, I'm that expert, and at the end of the day, come and prove what you, and they're running away. They can't be able to prove. Yet you say you're an expert or even a specialist in this. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about certifications. Now, making reference to that expertise, you are going to see details about it on their profiles. You will see details about it. So, and even when you have conversations with them, you know exactly that these people are very, very good at what they do. Then let's talk about certifications. You want to pay close attention. In the instance where of course, they are going to get as the process continues, you want to ask them to provide their certificate. For instance, if I say I have XYZ certification, I should be able to provide this. So you want to also verify. That's where we're screening those certificates to ensure, is this fake, is this real? Then at the end of the day, we want to do a background check. And so before you begin to do your background check, why waste a lot of time when you could just, go to a particular organization and compare what they do compare their certificates with what is currently with what the applicant has provided. Now, we're talking about the reference check. I've already said something about references earlier. So I don't need to buttress on that again. Then orders. Now, what I mean orders here, orders mean other information that might be required, or other critical information, or other critical aspects that the organization is looking to pay close attention to. So you want to also screen for that as well. Now, that brings us to the end of where to look to. Let's talk about the red flags so we can conclude this session. Now, why screening this particular profile? How do I even know the red flags? What exactly should I be looking out for with regards to red flags on this profile that I'm going through? Remember, when we're talking about profile here, profile exceeds the CV. It's not just the CV and the resume. Or even while you're discussing with the person, while you're having conversations with them, physical, their body language, all this forms the person's profile. So it's not just about maybe what you have on LinkedIn or what you have on the CV. No, that's inclusive part of the profile of the person. So while you're discussing with the person, you're also also analyzing the profile of this person. Okay, so now, what are the red flags? What should we look out for as red flags? One of them is inconsistency. Very much important. That's why if you have paid very good attention to the CV, you studied the CV. So when you're having a conversation with the person, when there is inconsistency with what they are saying versus what you have on your CV, and versus again the questions you are asking them what they're replying, then there's an issue. There's a lot of, if you can't, if the inconsistency, if there's an inconsistency, you want to ask again and verify. So once you'll see that there's a non-agreement here, you stated this and there's this, so which one do we take? So at the end of the day, they give you something else completely. I've had those situations where there's something that is on the CV, does not even agree with what they're currently saying. Then you now ask a question, they tell you something that's entirely differently from what they have said before you question again and from what is on the CV. So you see there's inconsistency. You cannot be able to take this. Take for instance, if you go ahead with such kind of person that I just mentioned and such kind of profile I just mentioned now, you present this candidate to the management of the audition, okay, and they ask them questions from the CV, and the person says a different thing, and they ask the person again, what did you say? The person repeats it, whole an entirely different thing. To look like you who brought the person, are you sure you actually know what you are doing? Okay, so now let's go ahead to talk about the lies and deceit, which is the next one. Lies and deceit. I talk about people who deliberately omit information just to deceive. It's very much imperative. People intentionally omit certain information from their CV not to deceive. At the end of the day, they end up deceiving themselves, not actually the organization. Because when it is found out, all the efforts, all the hope that they have created, maybe they've gotten to the final stage, only to find out that there's they've lied about certain things. And at the end of it, so why waste your time, and why I like truly for me, I have had those experiences where you like, my question is, why waste your time? Why waste the time of another person in the process while you are trying to deceive and lie on your CV? Then we go ahead to talk about the next one, which is half truths. Half truths are where people provide information but not complete information. So the information that they provide is practically not just complete, not completely accurate, not completely accurate. Now, I might just take for instance now, I want to talk about accomplishments in here now. So, what exactly did you accomplish? A question to the candidate, and the candidate is saying, I was able to, like it's vague, like I was able to produce 120% for the organization, 120% results based on 120% results on target for the organization. Okay, now how were you able to deduce that you produced 120%? And the person is confused. They don't know how to quantify. So how then did you come about the 120%? It's a major issue. How you cannot just claim that you have 120%. In fact, you can classify that as forgery. But now when it becomes forgery because it is false. But now there's an instance. The person may have produced results. But the question is that is it exaggerated? Or are you just assuming? Did you consult with your team lead and they told you, okay, yes, what we were able to do was 120? Or what was the exact figure? So in the instance where you were unable to have this exact figure, you don't go putting figures or percentages in the instance because you want to sound, you want to sound as very interesting on your CV. So there are a lot of other half truths that people provide about themselves. For instance, when it comes to maybe their location, some people provide two addresses now on their CV. Maybe for instance, if I'm the applicant and I'm putting forth an address because the job role is at Lekki, I'll use my office address in Lekki, and I'll use my address at Badagry only to put that there. So I just write my address at Badagry permanent, and the other one residential. So I just leave the other one. Why I put the other one as permanent, my permanent place, which is the one at Badagry, and the other one is at Lekki. So why go around all these things? Because when verifications are being done and they visit that place, people say you're not living here. So what is the essence when you lose all this? You finish the whole process only to find out that you just lose everything. So now, these are half truths. Of course, yes, the person who knows them live at the address where they are put, which they just want to intentionally, what they want to insinuate that they live in, which is the one that's close to the workplace. Then a place that is very far away, which is they confirm that yes, this is their permanent and this is where they live. Yeah, these are half truths, but actually you do not live there. So you actually are not telling the truth. So half truths are almost equal to lies. Okay, so now let's go ahead to talk about forgery. And now I made mention about that, talked about that yesterday, forge a lot of details, non-existent workplaces, non-existent work rules. So there are a lot of things, and then positions. A lot of things that they forge, their certificates, they like you don't you want to this is where but this when you do the verifications or when you do the screen, you want to go through all this and find out that these are actually forged. These documents are not real, they're actually forged. They'll talk about assumption. Most people just assume, they already make instances about that. Where people say they assume that they did XYZ for an option or they did this without they achieved XYZ results, which actually is not true. Or now that's assumption. Now we're talking about exaggeration. Oftentimes people can exaggerate. They exaggerate on their CV, like what they have done. Maybe they did 10%, and they intentionally exaggerate it. They overbloat it and say, I did this. Actually, what they did was far below what they mean there. Now, there are other things based on that, that's etc. Other things based on your perspective. So, of course, we are humans. A lot of things evolve every day. New tactics and new ways of trying to circumvent the process come up. So, as you have to also be smarter in these instances to identify them and cut them out. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the first session. So, which is the screening and profile review. Now, I want us to go ahead and talk about shortlisting. Remember, if you have questions, or okay, maybe let's repeat a question there. If you do have any question, which you could take there, we'll take that. Or more importantly, let's take that at the end of the session. Let's take that at the end of the session. So let's go on to the next one that talks about shortlisting. Shortlisting. What exactly do we mean by shortlisting? When we're going through this process, what we want to do when we're screening through the profiles of the candidates, what we actually are doing is the process of creating a shortlist. We are screening these candidates because we want to create a shortlist for interview. That's the main thing. So you see how it goes. We screen, we shortlist, we interview, right? So meaning every single thing that we have done in order to get the right candidates that actually fits into the role, which we believe fits into the role, so we can interview with them, is the process of shortlisting these candidates. So now, if I will explain that in a more simpler term, I would say is the process of identifying from the pool of applications a suitable candidate to be interviewed. So that's more like what shortlisting means. You want to get a pool of suitable candidates from all that. You want to get a list of suitable candidates or credible candidates from the pool of applications that are being sent. Take for instance, you have 1,000 applications. Now, the process of getting 10 or 20 out of this 1,000 applications is the process, is what we call that shortlisting, and that's more like every single thing that we have done earlier, which is which forms the screening. Then we'll go ahead to talk about the other things that we do now at this stage to ensure that this shortlisting is great. Okay, so now other details. Let's talk about the steps to shortlisting, which is the criteria. Of course, they are desired and essential criteria. Remember, from the JD, we have basic criteria that are being set out so that whoever it is that is applying should be able to meet this. Remember when we have job specification yesterday? So this criteria is very important. Whoever must apply must be able to meet with this criteria. Now, we want to split this criteria into the essential and the desirables. Of course. So let's take for instance that we have, so it's saying that there must be that whoever it is that is applying must have a minimum of HNPPSC for this role. This is essential for the role, right? The person who is applying should have a minimum of 5 years work experience for this role. This is essential for this role. Then when we are talking about we're talking about good communication skills, also essential for the role. Then there are other general skills. Maybe we'll say collaborative skills. Maybe it's not necessary for that particular role, but we desire that whoever it is should be able to have this. Then we'll talk about reporting skills. It is essential. But we'll talk about there are other skills that are desirable, but not necessarily essential to that particular role. Now, let's say good English speaking skills. Now, we're talking about good English speaking skills for a role, maybe like we'll say we want a software developer. Now, the person is not coming there to speak English. The person is actually coming, as long as they can communicate effectively well. The question is, the skill set. So they are desirable, but they're actually not essential for that particular role. So this is very much important here. I just give an example there. So there are much more examples to that. Then we go ahead and talk about scorecards. We'll discuss more on scorecards. So scorecard is more like the both criteria, the rating, every single thing that you want to use to assess this candidate. We're going to discuss more on scorecard. But scorecard talks about that's the candidate scorecard, what you have used, the criteria you have used, this criteria that we listed here now. We're going to list out those criteria. That's what we're going to now use to rate them. Rate whether it is or rate the profile, why you are, and this scorecard is continuous until the person is hired. So, but this is a candidate scorecard, and it contains every single information about why this particular candidate has emerged into the shortlist. So that's what the scorecard explains. So it's not like at least nobody needs to say, "Oh, this process was biased," because at the end of the day, every single thing is showing on that scorecard. So it's transparent because there's a scorecard. Then we'll go ahead and talk about blind screening. Oftentimes, this blind screening, so you will just focus mainly on the key things that are required for the role. Then there are just some other things that, for instance, now, let's say it's a remote job role. So you don't just want to come and start looking at where the location it is because it's a remote role. So there's no point going through all those other information. So as long as just the main thing is, can this person just do this particular job and it's done? So that's more like blind screening. Then when we talk about the minimum number, so in creating a shortlist, you need to know the of course they say okay they want a minimum of 5 or a minimum of 3 for for a shortlist. So there ought to be a minimum number. So every shortlist comes with a minimum number of candidates on that list. A minimum of 3, minimum of 5, it all depends on what the child wants. Then, but oftentimes what we see is 3, we see 5. These are between 3 to 5 are actually more like the numbers that are much more dominant. Okay, so now go ahead and talk about the last one, which talks about skills assessment. Skills assessment here forms a part of the shortlisting criteria. So our steps to shortlisting a candidate, our skills assessment is also part of that. Now, remember when we were having that conversation yesterday, I made mention of the fact that, okay, you say you are an excellent salesman or you're a very good salesman, an experienced salesman, and I asked you, okay, please, can you just quickly sell me your pen or sell me your smartphone that you're using or just sell me something, and you are able to even coordinate and sell something to me, then there's an issue. Because if you're a salesperson actually every time like they're looking for the opportunity to sell. That's one of the major things. They are looking for the opportunity to sell something to whoever it is that is close by or that they find within their space. That's one thing about sales. They are always prepared and they're looking for opportunities to start that conversation and start their process of selling the product that they have. So it should not be difficult for whoever it is that says they're a salesperson or a sales expert to be able to initiate a conversation around sales. Okay, this takes us to the next one that talks about creating that scorecard. Remember we talked about earlier on the list of the steps to creating a shortlist, which is candidate scorecard. Now, how do we create this candidate scorecard? What should we look out for? What are the things that we should find that should be found on that particular scorecard? If we go through them, we've just listed a few of these. We'll go through we just listed a few. Part of the things that should be on the scorecard includes dates. The dates which this screening was done. It might just be it might be a particular day or the process. If it's like a 2-day screening, a 3-day screening, a 3-day, whatever exercise it is, the duration, they just want to put it there. Oftentimes, just go with the dates you started that particular screening. It's very much important there. So there is a date which should be part of the creating a scorecard. So in the scorecard, there should be a date. Then there should be conducted by who is it that's doing this assessment. Okay, so how do we trust it? Who is conducting the scorecard? So it's not just about the name of the person who is that's the interviewer only, the name, the designation of that particular, that's the rank as well. If there's a staff ID, you want to put staff ID there, every single information about Who is conducting this? Do you have the authority to do that? That if it's authorized by, it needs to be put there as well. So if it's not authorized by anybody, then why are you conducting such exercise? Then go ahead to talk about the candidate itself. Of course, candidate is next on the list. The candidate that is being assessed at that particular time. So because you take them one at a time. So the candidate that is being assessed, the name of that candidate needs to be there. The position they are being assessed for also needs to be there. Then comes the criteria, the list of the details that they need to be assessed for, the skills, the abilities, the competence, every single thing, the certificate, every single thing that they need to be assessed for. All these criteria are listed there. Then there is a scorecard there. For instance, in the places where they need to undertake a test, physical test, or whatever test it is, you just need to put it there. And whatever it is that they scored, you want to also include it there. So all this scorecard forms the details about how we're able to arrive at this particular candidate for the role. They're talking about the standard rating. So if we don't have a criteria, then we should have a standard rating. Standard rating might be a rating of 10. Of course, option uses 10, some option use 100%. That is in percentage. Why use a scale of 1 to 10? All depends on whichever one of the option uses. Might be a scale of 1 to 10 or a percentage of 100. So this particular standard rating is as against the actual rating of that particular candidate. So if the scale is at 10, then what exactly did the applicant get? Is it 7? Is it a 6? Is it a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? That's or even a nil there. So whichever one it is. So the standard rating versus the actual rating. So there's a column for standard rating, and there's a column for actual rating, and there's a column for remark. So at the end of the day, once all this, we want to get a total of what the candidate scored in that particular interview. That's what makes it a score card. Then there's a remark from whoever it is that has conducted this assessment. Then we have an etc. because there might be needs to add other things to it more than what we have on this particular list at the moment. Okay. Now, this brings us to the common mistakes that are being made in creating, in shortlisting or in coming up with a shortlist. Now, one of them is bogus requirements. Of course, I understand that there are some employers that want, or some options that want, they want this, they want that, they want this, they want that. So it's more like it's unrealistic. So the requirements are so bogus such that we get someone who is able to do this and someone they cannot do that. So, but more importantly is among the list of the requirements that are being used, that's why I'm using a scorecard. So it's not necessary, they must not get it 100%, but at least everyone who has skilled above 70, they are viable. It means that their profile is really, really great. They've crossed a whole lot of hurdles. So at least they are within a very good state such that they can move to becoming a credible candidate for the role and they can be interviewed. So bogus requirements should not be a thing that frightens the recruiter. So at this particular bogus, when you have a bogus requirement like that, just list them, follow through them, use the scorecard to arrive at the list, to arrive at the shortlist. So in that shortlist is where you create a scorecard. Sorry, if you use a scorecard, the scorecard will then help you to understand where exactly does this particular person fall. So if this person is below 5, of course, you don't want to below average, you don't want to go ahead with it because it might not. But now, amongst that bogus requirement, they are very more like core essential requirements. This person might be very, very good with the essential skills. Remember I talked about those essential requirements and the desired ones. So if this person is more like a 90 in the essential one and the desired ones is more like a 10, 20 there, the person may still be very good at that. All it demands now is the particular department that is involved as a hierarchy officer to make decision on that. Okay, since this person has the major skills that we have, these other ones are trainable. We can train on that. I said something about that yesterday. So in this bogus requirement, we want to pay close attention to the main thing, the core of the job. If that person can do their job excellently well and deliver, have a nice performance, then there's no problem. Where the problem lies is in that essential. What is the skills that are required for that, or the essential requirements for that particular role? And once they are met, we want to go. The option might go ahead with that particular profile. So in bogus requirements, don't need to get afraid. Go ahead and continue with the profile. Then let's talk about unclear job descriptions. When the job descriptions are not just so clear, of course, they are depending on organizations that provide job descriptions, more like half of it. Then later, when profiles are already okay, then there's more. Oh, so that person should be able to also do this, do that, do that. So they are unclear job descriptions. So you need to be prepared for that. Then, and another perspective to unclear job description is as a recruiter, when you have a job description, JD share with you, you need to pay close attention to this to the job description. Ensure that you understand what the role is all about. We understand what the role is all about and what the person who is coming in should be doing. Then you have a very good understanding about who is the right person or right fit for that particular role and can begin the process. So it should be clear, very much clear. So in the place where it is not clear, then that's a point for where the HR can ask questions, possibly with the maybe the head of department who is involved with that role. Also, you can get much more explanation on that particular list on that particular role. So now we'll go ahead to talk about unrealistic desired profiles. Remember, I talked about desired versus essentials. They can be unrealistic desired profiles, but the main thing is essentials. So focus on the essentials. But that does not mean that you should look away from the desired results. They are desired because they're important for a reason. So they are desired for a reason. So you want to also pay close attention to it. But the question is, the desired should not overrule the essentials. Very much important. So once the essentials are there, but that does not mean the person will have a zero in the desire because that's practically a red flag as well there. So it should be complementary. At least there should be a good number of desired skills on that particular profile that person should possess. But most oftentimes we find that no one person meets 100% of all that. Because oftentimes there are a lot of things that are listed, but no one person fits 100%, meets 100%, 100%. Oftentimes can have 99.9%, of course. So, but sometimes there can be situations of 100%. Maybe I've not just met with categories of that at the moment. Okay, now let's go out and talk about liked versus the best. Now, liked versus the best. Yes, you might be having this more like personality. This person during the process of interview, a candidate might impress. Okay, this is very much impressive, but they might not just have the profile. They might not just have the skill set that is required. Yes, you may like that personality, but that's not what is best for that particular role. So you want to focus on what is best for that particular role. So these are pitfalls. You don't want to okay, I like this, I like the appearance, I like this. What you like versus what is required, what is best for that role should not be at variance. Actually, what you should like is what is best for that particular role. Then we'll talk about misfits. We talked about this misfits very much yesterday. So, but I think if we follow through up until here, I think you wouldn't have issues with misfit. Misfit always comes when all that we have discussed thus far is not followed. That's where we have misfits in roles. Then we'll talk about bias. A lot of bias. So as a HR person or a recruiter, you definitely should not have any bias with regards to profile, race, whatever it is, should like have a clear mind. Then I think even personality as well. We should have a clear mind when it comes to that, because when issues like this come up, of course, it comes with a lot of indictment. Okay, I think this brings us to an end with regards to the common mistakes that are made with regards to creating a shortlist. Okay, that brings us to the end of number 2. Now, if we finally go on to the number 3 that talks about interviewing. Now, what exactly do we do? So interviewing is at this stage now. Remember, we have crossed the stage of screening those profiles, screening the profiles, and as well as sieving through the CVs. Then we've now crossed the second hurdle that talks about shortlisting. So before we get to the place of interview, it means that we've screened and have created a shortlist. Then we now have candidates suitable for interview or credible for interview, such that we know, okay, yes, at the end of the day, we're not wasting our own time and we're not wasting the time of the applicant as well. So what exactly is interviewing? It's more like what we said, what we've been saying earlier, which is asking questions to get the opinion or know more about that person. So if you want to you want to get more information from that because you're already conducting oral interviews where these phone calls, asking questions about that's interview that's going on. But we're talking about proper interviews now, where there has to be a lot of planning, where the candidate walks into the place of the interview, or it might still even be virtual. So it might be virtual, it might be physical. That's when we talk about virtual, it might be online, then it might be offline, which is physical. So the person comes in person and we have a conversation on that. So which is virtual or physical. So now how then do we ensure that this interview is great? Because it's one thing to conduct an interview and just end up, this is a good profile. But if you don't get the interview right, you just waste the time, or the person might have might just be the right candidate. But if we don't follow the right process or we don't do the right things, the person might just turn out to just be maybe at the end of the day they don't give the best of themselves to that particular role. Remember that all we've been saying is to get the right person. So you don't want to miss out the right person because the right process was not followed. Now, how do we do this? How do we ensure? So these are some of the things that can be done. Some, there's more. So these are some of the things that can be done to ensure that the interview is great. One of them is when you prepare for the interviews, a lot of follow up must have been done so that the emails are sent. A reminder is sent to that person such that okay, this interview is for 11 a.m. Then there should be a reminder ahead. For instance, that application, that invite must have been sent. Now, when we are sending that invite, send the invite and give the person ample time to prepare. Of course, there are times where there are emergencies, such that, oh, this is just a role that is maybe someone just appropriately resigned and will have this profile. I'll just make a call, please. Can you just come immediately, or can you come next tomorrow morning for an interview? So if you are making a phone call to that particular person to find out. So that's more like a very short notice. I understand that these are exceptional, but now we're talking about like best practices. How do we do so? Now the process is well, you schedule the person, but before you schedule the person, you want to reach out, find out. So you schedule with the person and create you create a timeline for that, at least a day, 2 days, a 2 days or 24 hours notice or 48 hours notice, or even 72 hours notice is a very good timeline. Oftentimes, what the standard is always between 48 to 72 hours notice. So once someone has that, they have ample time to prepare. Now, when we send out this notice, you want to place a phone call, you want to send a text message to ensure that that person actually saw that invitation. Now, when they see that invitation, the essence of that phone call again is to ensure that they reply and acknowledge receipt of that invitation and also acknowledge their availability for that interview. It is very, very much important. So you send an invite. That does not just mean because you send an invite, the person saw it. Because it might just land in your spam folder. That is one. Secondly, it might be the person saw it and failed to failed to acknowledge. Then that is another one. So once the invitations has been set, we want to also put a call and acknowledge. Then there are certain extreme cases where you have to even make you have to put a call across and agree on a certain date for that particular invitation. So that as we progress into that. But some people there are certain situations where you have to even put a call across, agree on a particular date, then schedule, send a notice. That's when the email has been sent. You also want to send a text message, put a call across, and ensure that that person has seen the invitation that was sent. Now, on the day of that invitation, you want to also make a call and ensure that the person is on schedule for that invitation. Now, prior to that, take for instance that the timeline that was given was further. Let's say you gave more like 4 days notice to that particular candidate. It means that in between, you should be able to reach out. Okay, hope you are still, you set a reminder for this interview. Maybe like second day, a day to the training, a day to the interview. You want to set a reminder for that particular person. Then, more importantly, also, when you have done a follow-up of that particular interview, then you want to also reach out on the day of that. So you don't just get everybody seated waiting for the particular candidate to show up and they don't just show up. So you want to ensure that morning of that particular interview, okay, hope we're on schedule. So the person candidate confirms to you that they're on schedule for that particular interview. So at that particular time, they come, they at least they arrive for that interview. Then if it is like virtual one, all the same processes are applicable both for online and for offline. That's virtual and physical interviews. That's Now, when this candidate arrives for this particular interview, one of the major things to do is, if it is a physical interview, the candidate has to, there should be a place where the candidate is to rest. Of course, that's this more like it's practical. There's always a reception, so the candidate finds a place to take some rest there. Then there's an interview hall where the candidate can even, where all the candidates are assembled. So they go into those particular, so they can please take a rest from where they are actually coming from. That's if they are much. Now, in an instance where it's just one person that is being interviewed, so the person just comes and at the reception, so they can just take their time, and is a minimum of 15 minutes is great. So they take their time, 15 minutes or even 10 minutes, they rest, and they can be invited in. So with that, they are calm, so they can attend to the questions that you may have for them. Now, in the instance where this interview commences, and you have to pay close attention to each of the candidates, and you find out that they are uneasy with the process. You want to help them become at ease, such that they can ask questions. They can answer your questions. Remember, we talked about that yesterday. By exchanging pleasantries, asking certain questions that will help easing up the atmosphere. That will help easing up the atmosphere such that there is no tension, and the candidate can be able to respond excellently well. Oftentimes, this can play out. Maybe you just have one candidate like that, and you have a panel, maybe like a panel of 5 people, and wow, so what am I going to do? And so they get frightened, and maybe all that they prepared for, even the things that they know so well, it just eludes them. So you don't want this. That's why they rest and they come in. The pleasantly, the atmosphere is easing up through questions or even exchange of pleasantry. All this will help to ease up the atmosphere for this particular session of the interview. Then we'll go ahead to ask open-ended questions. So this will also help to ease up the candidates. Then, in the interview proper, one of the major things that is important here is to listen more. The candidate is there to answer questions and not not like a training where they come to listen. No, you are the one who is doing the listening, and the candidate gets to do the talking. So that's why they are there. They are there to talk. So you question and they take the answers. You question and they take on the answers as well. So now another best practice is to take notes. Very much important to take notes. So when you take notes, it's the key question. Of course, when someone is talking, there's tendency for the listener to forget certain things, because there are questions that are propping up in your own mind as well as a listener. So those key important things that you noted, you want to write them down. Your questions, you want to take them down such that you don't forget them, and you want to ask them candidate once they are done with what they're currently saying. Then you want to also observe non-verbal cues to ensure that what they are saying aligns with what they are not saying. Very, very important. That makes you very sensitive. So you need to pay close attention to what the candidate is saying, and verbally and non-verbally. Then finally, show appreciation. So the person that puts in a lot of effort to also remember that it's not just about the person. All through that process, every single person has put on a lot of effort to ensure that it's successful. So also they need to be thanked. Oftentimes, it's a reciprocation. So the candidate thanks the panel thanks the candidate. So it's just a gesture that is done to appreciate each other's effort towards the process. Okay, now this brings us to the red flag when interviews are going on. So what should we do? What should we look out for as red flags for those interviews? Now, you've followed up on this candidate. You've made phone calls, sent text messages, done every single thing. On the day of interviews, the candidate is calling to say, please, can we reschedule? This is a red flag. Then secondly, that's what the person is, there's an emergency. I have this emergency, I have an emergency. These are red flags. Possibly, maybe there are things that you did not pay attention to that are showing up there. Then the other red flags show that the person, okay, after all this while that they have to notice, they are yet not prepared for the interview. They need to run around and so they are arriving late for the interview. You sent the invite, you did a follow-up the previous day, you also called on the day of the interview, and the candidate is still arriving late for the interview. There's something is wrong. Definitely Because if you have an interview by 11, I presume that that's the most latest time for the candidate to arrive is at 10:45. 10:45 is the most latest. So I believe the candidate, if you ask, scheduled for an 11 o'clock interview, at least if you arrive there at 10:30, that would be great in a situation, in a society where we are. Because if we have road networks that are so great, such that there's less traffic, that would be great to say, okay, you arrive at exactly 10:55, 10:45 or 10:55, such that you can go in by 11 and have your meeting. So, but there are times where you don't want to prepare and say, okay, I'm going to beat the traffic, I'm going to do that. At the end of the you end up coming late. So that's one of the major things that you want to pay close attention to. So when the candidate seems unprepared for this particular interview, then there's an issue. It means a lot of things, and one of the major things it means here is that it's either the candidate does not value this role, or it's actually that they are not interested in the role. That's it. Then what is talking about unsuitable clothing for the role. So candidates can, for instance, if it's a virtual interview and they are attending this virtual interview and the candidates on pajamas, like, or you're just on casual wear, where you are being interviewed for a particular role, and then you're on casual wear, you're on pajama, you're sleeping wear. Like, what's going on? You have an interview and you dress anyhow, you shop anyhow. Then maybe for the ladies, the hair is unkempt, like everywhere is not just so great. Then another one is we have the environment is just littered, and so you just there's an issue there. Then that's one. That's the second one. Then the third one is not arriving on time. I already have said something about that. When candidates do not arrive on time, thinking they are going to beat the traffic, and the traffic end up giving them a blow. Okay, now we'll go on to talk about the next one that says bad mouthing previous employers. Most people do not realize that job functions are an opportunity, regardless of the fact that you working, that it's a job, it's an opportunity. So if a candidate finds it interesting to demarket the organization that they have worked for, it's very much imperative to understand here. For instance, when you're asking someone, okay, why did they leave on their last piece of assignment or last place of work? That's not bad mouthing. That's a different situation. Possibly, maybe there's an issue or there's a scenario that played out. That's not bad mouthing. But non-related questions that span that leads a candidate to begin to say certain things that are unhealthy about an organization that they have worked for, and more importantly, they worked for this organization for a lot of, like, a number of years. One of the questions I always ask of such candidates: what was your own contribution to ensure that whatever it is that you're complaining about was resolved? That's one key way of knowing if actually the person is just a kind of person, a person given to criticizing and bad mouthing other people. You want to pay close attention to that. In that instance, but if from the answer that they give to you, you want to know the kind of person that they are. If not, you know, okay, that this was actually a scenario. There are some instances where this is beyond them. This is not what they can do. Like, take for instance, I understand the fact that not a lot of people keep to agreement. They say one thing and they do another. Organizations, most organizations can do that. So they say one thing and they do another, they say one thing and they do another, and the employee gets frustrated. Or in a place where the employees are pressured to deliver the result, but the work tool to deliver the results are not there. That's not bad mouthing. You're saying it as it is. So it is what it is. So, but there are different things that other things that can be said that actually is not, that does not sit so well with the brand. So that's certainly the things that you want to pay close attention to. So employees should be able to, when they speak so terribly about their organization, you want to understand, is it from a bitter perspective of the marketing, or that's true your question, or is it as a result of what the situation was when they were there? So I think from your question, you should be able to deduce that. Then on this list, last on the list is arrogant appearance. So now, when person is having a conversation, and they're like, okay, yes, you may be a result oriented person, you might be a result person, but like, must you rub it on the face of everybody that, like, you need to know how to present yourself? So that arrogant appearance you want to pay close attention to, because it is going to play out. Should this person get hired? Now, it depends on the job role. If it's not going to have an issue with their future supervisors or their fellow team members, if that form of arrogance is not going to not going to cause a problem, then by all means, the candidate should go ahead. But in an instance where it's going to become toxic, such that that appearance that they, or that perception that they are making available, that they are showing to you, you should not overlook it. You need to assess, okay, is this one negligible, or this is not something that can be neglected? You want to pick it. So when this is assessed properly, you want to, okay, this appearance is manageable. It's not, or maybe somebody is just being naive. So you want to show, okay, this is not going to be harmful in the workplace. So you want to overlook that. But there are people who are more like entitled, and there are a lot of issues around. So maybe if this is going to be affecting their job, and not just only affecting, but it's going to be also affecting the team members. You don't want to bring in things that's going to have an issue with the organization. So, but why a feedback on the interview is being given, you might just find a mild and a kind way of passing on those information as a way, as places where the candidate needs to improve on. That's those kind of things that we do. So this forms a list. These are more actually, etc. And these are more actually forms a list of the red flags in an interview process. Okay, now this brings us to the final note, which is the best practices for interviews. Best practices for interviews. One of them is always prepare to ask questions, and prepare not just to ask questions, smart questions that unravel the truth. That so interview is not just about asking questions. It's about asking questions, smart questions that would, for me, I believe it's more like an investigative questions that help you to understand why they have those information on their CV. Don't, I'm not, if I just need to come and ask you and you just emphasize every single thing on your CV, then it's just that maybe I have enough, so much time that I just want to see your face and just have a conversation. That makes no sense. Why I'm asking that question is to ascertain that truly what you have on your CV is actually what is feasible. So it's not like you're just coming to come and read out every single thing that you have on your CV, or we're just having a casual conversation. So having a smart conversation such that I can deduce that yes, what you have on your CV is aligning with what you say, and exactly what you say and what you have on your CV are authentic. That's what, and I'm using the questioning approach to get those information and those facts right. Okay, then the next one talks about expect questions from the interviewees. Of course, if you ask me questions, I should be able to. You should also be prepared that I should have some questions. I'll ask you as well. So in those instances, if those questions come up, you take them so you can prepare for those questions that are in line with the job role. Now, that's very much. It's also important to note here that it's not all questions at the moment can be answered. There are some questions that the interviewees can ask at that time, but at that particular stage, it cannot be answered. So you just politely let them know that when they get to the next stage or they get to a certain stage, all the information that they seek will be provided to them. That's should they get to this particular stage. Because there are some questions that they ask, but those questions are sensitive or those questions are meant to be confidential. So possibly maybe those questions are actually meant for when the person have crossed certain stages. That's when they can have the answers to those questions. So that's that. Then thirdly, you talk about use of that's where you are interviewing. Always make sure that you're paying close attention. Of course, the CV should be on your screen, or you should have studied that particular profile excellently well before going into the interview. And while you are on the interview, have a copy of that CV on hand by you can ask your questions from the CV, which is the photo. Ask questions from the CV. So from all that you have deduced, you're asking questions from that CV, and that's more like an investigative one. So you can find out and affirm the fact that okay, what they have on the CV is great. Then I'm going to talk about dressing professionally for that particular role. You have to dress well for that interview. So if you want the candidate to dress well, you also have to dress well, present yourself excellently well. Then I'm going to talk about follow-up after the interview has been conducted, at least like a follow-up, an interview. So if some candidates find time to follow up when they don't get feedback. So in those instances, you provide the replies to their follow-up questions. Then we'll talk about listening carefully. When candidates listen carefully so they listen carefully to you. You also should ensure that you listen carefully to the candidate. So paying close attention. So what I'm saying, listen carefully here now. this is more like paying attention to details, paying attention to verbal and non-verbal cues. So these are the things that we are focusing on. So we listen carefully means pay attention to both verbal and non-verbal cues. Then keep to time. If you say 11 is 11, if 11, let 11 be 11. So I understand the fact that there can be emergencies such that at 11, certain things may happen. Take, for instance, it's a virtual interview, and maybe it rains heavily, such that there's no network. So these are circumstances or situations that are beyond control, that are beyond your own control. You can't do anything about them. So when the network is restored, you want to reach out to the particular candidate, help them understand that okay, it was about the network that this interview did not start at the exact time, and they still available, and we go ahead with the interview created such that the interview continues at a later date. Then finally, close on a positive note. So close on a positive note on that interview such that you thank the person and they thank you for your time in participating in that particular interview. And this brings us to the end of today's training exercise. So if you do have any questions, I would like to take that now. Please go ahead and ask your questions. Okay, someone is saying in a case where the candidates meets up with the age limit but not meet up with the academic grade required, what can be done for this particular? Well, I would want to say just kindly refer and stick to the specification, the job specification that has been listed by the organization. So you have a JD, you are working with that JD. That's what you are working with. So if the age, the person is not, the person is actually out of it. If they are within the age range and they don't have the academic work, they are out of it. So I make mention about I made mention about essential requirements and desired requirements. So I made mention about that. So you want to pick close. So these are essential. These are critical to the role. So it's imperative that the candidate must have it. Less you spend a lot of time, and at the end of the day, it's not what the profile that was the profile that was or the shortlist that was created is not credible. So it's just going to be a waste of time. Possibly, if you want to give it a try, maybe you want to try it, and at the end of the day, when the time is wasted, you want to start afresh. Maybe you learn from that. So, but I think that is very much important. Okay, so now another situation says in a case where maybe an invite is reported by an applicant. Okay, the patient is reported by an applicant few hours before the time. Okay, now we're talking about that's I said something about certain characters what candidates exhibit. You have you when you were reached out to, a schedule was created, then a follow up was done. You go ahead to talk about another follow up was still done on the day of the interview, and you will now call like a few hours or in a few hours. I understand that there can be emergencies. There can be emergencies. So in an instance where there's still time, possibly they also can reschedule you. But and it all also boils down on the way and manner that emergency is communicated. On the way and manner it is communicated. I have had instances where candidates are scheduled for all the assurances were there that you're going to show for the interview. Only on the morning of that interview, you're just sending a note and you're writing a lot of stories there. Like even you, when you read through these stories, you just know that it is not just true. There's something that this whatever the person is saying is not actually not true. So that's that. But if they are justified with the reasons that are being given, and there is time, by all means, you go and the candidate is rescheduled. But where it's not just only that candidate that is scheduled for an interview, you go ahead with other candidates. So possibly maybe even in the process of that day's interview, the right person is found. Sorry, the right person is found, and you go ahead and pick whoever it is that was shortlisted for that particular interview. Okay. The next question says, in a case whereby okay. That's what I just said now. Where a candidate aborts an interview. That's what I just said. So how do you research about a candidate that do not have an online profile? Okay, they are not on social media platforms. Of course, remember I said something. This particular kind of background check often are within some kind of organizations. I'm not going to be revealing, there are certain things I'm not going to be saying. This is probably a public space. Things I'm not going to be saying here, but what I'm saying is, in that instance, from your question, if I reply directly to your question, what I would say is, in that instance, there is no point. It means that person does not have a social profile. But it is imperative that person must have a social profile. The person needs to be social, and they don't have a social profile. That's a disqualification for them. Now, that is one. But if they have a social profile and they are denying the fact that they do not have a social profile, then that's another issue. So they're lying, they're not telling the truth. So that's it. Then, so the question is, if that social profile verification is important and they don't have, then they actually do not fall. Remember when I talked about when that's a requirement, I'm saying that for every job role, for instance, if you're, as an architect, if you are going to apply, you're not just going to send me your CV. I'm not going to just walk through your CV. I need your portfolio. I need to see what you have done. An interior designer, I need to see what you have done. The things that you have done that actually makes you an interior designer, not your CV that makes you an interior designer. So it is what you have done that helps me understand, okay, yes, this, the quality and the caliber of work that you have done matches with what the organization is looking to do. That's the essence. So the same thing it is. If this role that you are being hired for requires that you need to provide your social profile and you don't have one, that means by all means you are not you're falling short of that particular one. Then the instance where the person is lying, that's also another major issue there. You don't want to continue with that as well. Okay, I think I've answered that. Other critical, there's more to that, but I think with time we get more information with regards to that. Okay, we have to say, okay, okay, says they are not on LinkedIn or social, they are not on social media or on LinkedIn. Of course, I've already said something about it. If they're not on social media, that's so long as it's not a major issue for the organization, there's no problem about that. Then, if the candidate meets up with the age range, academic background, other criteria, but lacks proper presentation for an interview, what's the best way to assist such a candidate? Of course, now this candidate has done so well, but with regards to other criteria. Now, when that comes to presentation, I've made emphasis on this. There are certain things that can be overlooked, certain cannot be overlooked. Take, for instance, you have all these requirements and you're coming to a customer service role. It is also one of the essential requirements that you should be able to present yourself well. If you're going to be a front desk, a customer service, a receptionist, a client service person, or any other role that interfaces with clients and customers, you should be able to present yourself well. If you cannot present yourself well, there's an issue. You can't. This is not like the one that will be you be brought in and a training can be done. No, it's not. That does not fall within that particular range. But there are places, and I made an example like a software developer. Take for instance, the software developer. What you want is okay, develop software, develop the software. Like they can develop very very good and rugged software. So what are you not talking about? When they develop their softwares, you don't need, there's no correction, there's no errors, nothing. They do an excellent job, but maybe they cannot present themselves very well. English is not criteria, it's not a criteria there. Then composure is not also criteria in that particular. The criteria is in what they can do with their skill. Take for instance, we're talking about a technical, like a technician, electrical technician. It's not coming to speak English. That's not what we're bringing in there. Can he write his reports? Can he prepare his technical reports? Can he be able to do the job excellently well? Then people that he's going to be working with, he's going to be interacting with, can he communicate effectively well with them? These are the key things that we want to look out for. Then maybe the presentation, how he presented himself. Remember that that's just one out of the major tests that are being done. He's going to undergo that test. You can imagine that maybe in that profile present, when it comes to this presentation, interview presentation, maybe his score is like 30. But when it comes to come and do the electrical practicals, and you can do every single thing 99%. That's what we're looking for. That's it. But when we're saying in that extreme situation, like where it is a rule, like the person, like presentation is not there. They cannot even communicate very well. Maybe in a language people can understand. Maybe that's the extreme case we are talking about. In that instance, maybe they will need to go and brush up their communication skills or their presentation skills. They can go and do that. Remember that when we're talking about that presentation, we're not necessarily making emphasis on communication. How they're able to communicate effectively well, even though when we're making reference to presentation, is about how they put how they carry the construction, they present, they prepare and they present what they want to say. This is more like how they comport themselves, the composure, all this forms the presentation you're talking about. I guess so. So I think that answers your question excellently well. There are things that can be overlooked and there are things that cannot be overlooked. For that role, if it is critical, then it must be delivered. If it is not, then if it's not critical, then maybe if we want to check the rating, if the rating is not zero, I mean we can rate this person at 3/10 or a 30%, then maybe something that they can be trained on and give them some basic brush-ups and they do well. So then that's great. So I think that answers that question. Okay, go ahead to say the next one says, as a recruiter, you have a good applicant, but the company is offering another applicant. Okay, other applicant differs from yours. What do you do? But the company is offering another applicant. Okay, I think that I don't get that question very well. But I would rather say maybe if I understand what you're saying, you're trying to say maybe if there's another offer or a better offer given to the applicants elsewhere, then it's there for them to make a choice if they want to work with the organization or if they do not want. The choice is for the applicants to make. That's if I understood your question. Else, kindly rephrase that question. I think there's some errors there. Then let's go ahead to talk about the next one. It says, what's of in a case where applicants have a half biodata on their CV because they want the CV to look updated, would that, okay, would this still be considered? I already said this, that some people intentionally omit some CVs for the intent to deceive or to tell half truths. So maybe at the end of the day, experience will teach certain things, more like I've had those situations and I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm talking about. So in those instances, the question is you want to determine, is this candidate telling the truth? So, but more importantly, as a recruiter, what you want to pay close attention is the timeline to deliver. If the timeline to deliver is much, you don't just want to, the timeline, if there's time, you want to write back to that particular application and ask them for the question, ask them to supply the details that is missing. That is just the best way to respond to such kind of application. That is if you have the time to do all these responses over, let's say, 100 applications that is defaulting in this, and you have less than 24 or 48 hours to work. So I don't know where you find the time to respond to all these 100, maybe 100 applications who intentionally omit some of this information. Maybe it's clearer when you do that and you see that you have a lot of work to do and you end up just maybe, and when they reply, maybe they give you answers that is completely off. And yes, the profiles are not great. And remember, before you even begin to reply to that particular profile, ensure that the profile that CV actually matches what you are looking for. So you just want to verify all those other information that I'm missing out. If not, it's just a waste of time. Okay. It says that a good CV should not be scanty, but how many pages is a good CV? Okay, when I'm talking about a good CV, I'm not talking about the number of pages. I'm talking about details. I'm talking about the required details for a CV. So a good CV does not equal a lengthy CV. They are not the same. A good CV is a CV that provides all the details that are required for a particular. For instance, if I say that I am a sales executive, what exactly was I selling? Who was I selling? Like all this information, what was my day-to-day job function? What did I do? What was my day-to-day? More like your job description. What did you do while you were at that company? That's very important. Then, what was I able to achieve for them? That's when it comes to my job roles, my job functions, and my responsibility. I'm talking about my profile. Was I able to present myself excellently well on that CV? Then I'm talking about my academic qualifications, my detail, my skills. Are they on that CV? My competencies, what I can do excellently well, are they on that CV? Then my bio data, are they on that CV? My address, my every single thing, is on that CV? I've seen CVs without name. Like well, I don't. That's not something I want to start discussing. So, like there are certain things that when they are not when they are omitted out of that CV, it's either maybe if it's intentional or maybe the person is does not yet know how to write good CVs. Then I think, but when it comes to this CV or the thing, maybe you can just refer to the CV writing approach that we did on this particular platform. Just search for it and you get them. Then outside of that, I've already said that the number of pages does not equate to the number of CV. I'm talking about the quality of information on that CV is what makes it a good CV, a great CV, such that at the end of the day, because I remember I was making emphasis about CVs. Now, if you say you're a salesperson, you're telling me that you're a salesperson, and your CV is not even marketable. Your CV is not presentable. It's not attracting you. What are you selling? You will say your profile first now. You have to present yourself excellently well for you to present a brand. If you cannot sell yourself well, how can you sell a brand? That is one. I made another example, and I said a software developer. If I'm a software developer, I should be able to list the softwares, the programs, languages that I can work with, every single thing I can use, I should list them. I will not just say I'm a software developer, then I play around the softwares I can use that I can do, I can work with excellently well. If I keep that, that's more like I'm not even started. Because for instance, if I need a C# engineer and what you are is a PHP engineer, are you trying to waste my time, or like you need to provide all those information handy? So when I go through your CV, oh, I see this. Not only you can do C#, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, you can do like Bootstrap. You put every single thing down there. Like I can see them excellently. I know, okay, this is what I'm looking for, right? There are some profiles once you see them instantly, you just take your phone and call the person. That's what it means where an excellent CV comes in. Once you see the profile, you just pick your phone and call the person. So I saw the CV, okay. You begin the process immediately because why? The CV is great. It's very enticing. Like that's exactly the kind of person that I'm looking for. I also understand the fact that people can put all these amazing facts or create very amazing CVs, and at the end of the day, oh yeah, come and present, come and when it comes to the practical session, and they cannot present themselves excellently well, then I understand that fact. There's an issue there. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the next one. It says, I think a good CV should not be bulky, and at the same time, no miss. Okay, do not miss on the vital details with the hiring firm would need. Okay, 2 pages, of course. Okay, so but there's no when we're talking about 2 pages. That's why I did not make any mention with regards to page. You cannot be saying 2 page. For instance, let's take for instance you're hiring a director. If you're a director, there's no how you can be a director with over 20 years experience and you have a 1 page CV. Even a 2 page CV, you need to squeeze and squeeze to have a 2 page CV for maybe a director level. So that's why if you're saying 2 page, it all boils down to what this person has done. Let's say, for instance, we're hiring a director of over 25 years. Or like, if you're like a director that's for over 25 years, have you been playing? What have you been doing? All those, if you are detailed on your CV, you shouldn't even contain 2 pages. That's why I didn't make mention on pages. And I'm making emphasis on the quality of information on your CV. That is what makes a good or great CV. So that's a summary on that. Okay, but I really appreciate also what you said earlier. Of course, it has to be more detailed about what the hiring company is looking out for. Okay, then someone says, can non-online profile like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, no, it cannot, definitely. It cannot affect a candidate. Remember what I said earlier, that it doesn't necessarily must not have an online profile. And I also made mention about the fact that not all job roles require that. Take for instance, if you're going to be working as a director, or you're going to be working in a leadership position where you will influence other people. I don't want to go into too much details about it. Where you have to influence other people, there are a lot of background check that is done. But more importantly, when it comes to this kind of background check with regards to online profiles, oftentimes these are senior level positions. That's whether these are senior level positions, and people who are not in that senior level no longer need to. They don't need to bother so much about it, but they are more like for senior level roles because you're going to be influencing things, you're going to be influencing decisions, you're going to be making policies. So, like, you need to know what your values are. We need to know kind of person that you are. So that particular profile, what that profile search actually does is you can get to understand your person better, that your line of thoughts. So that's okay. I think that let's leave that there. Okay, so we'll go ahead to talk about. I've given you all the basic details that is required. It's just so that what we're saying in essence is your profile on LinkedIn, Instagram does not affect anything. So even if you don't have maybe let's say a fresh graduate, that's is no big deal. But now it is a big deal when you are actually applying for a social media role. Remember, I made mention about that. Take for instance, you are applying for a social media. You want to become a social media manager. You want to manage a social media page, or you want to apply for a content creator page. You cannot tell me that you're a content creator when your CV is scanty. Remember, I said that from your CV, I can deduce the kind of person that you are already. Your CV is scanty. You are not even engaging in social media. Like you can't even engage people online. You don't have a profile. You don't engage online. So how do you want to now manage the one for an organization very well? You see, that's that's a situation where it is mandatory. So if let's say you want to be a digital marketer, you want to be a social media person, a graphic designer, there's some new generation rules that will require that you should have this. If you're going to be a digital marketer, you should have a social profile now. If you're going to be a content creator, you should have a social profile. If you're going to also be a social media manager, you should have a social profile. We have to see what are you even doing on your own, such more that you want that you have even gathered. In fact, what do you even put as expertise on the role when you don't even have an expertise in relating with people online very well? Okay, I think that is that. We'll go ahead to say, so remember in a summary of that, I made it very clear that when it comes to online verification, online profile verification, that's not for all the roles. And more importantly, what it's been trying, what is being investigated here is that candidate's line of thought. That is what kind of person that they are. So that's just what is being ascertained here, because you're going to be in a place where policies will be made, where you make policies, where you influence decisions. That is why this is imperative. So if you're not in such a situation and you're not in a new generation job role, such like digital marketing, social media management, so this does not actually concern you. Okay, we'll go ahead to talk about but there are some job roles where they might ask that, maybe like those embassy roles where you apply for roles in those foreign embassies. They might need this, but I don't know if that is not that I don't know. It's not like it's a prerequisite. So it all depends on what the organization they want. So I've made that very very clear so that we do not misconstrue the whole thing. So that's why I said it's somewhat controversial if you don't understand it. So try and understand exactly what I'm making emphasis on, that it is about understanding the kind of person that this person is. Because when you go through their CV, you also want to go to their social profile. What do they stand for? What are their values? What do they stand for? What kind of person they are? So that is done. Now, if at the end of the recruitment you have a good applicant for the job, and then the board brings another applicant different from yours, what do you do, or how do you handle that? Okay, now this is a different scenario. This is a different situation where I believe maybe there are situations maybe like internal politics is playing out, then that's different. Or a situation where maybe they say, okay, maybe they give a different reason. But if that candidate that was provided, or that shortlist that was provided are very great, every single business wants the best for them. That is it. So, but maybe where the politics of the business comes into play, that's for the organization. So it all depends. You are working with the organization, and so more like it's what is best for the organization. That's what counts at this particular time. So that's what I would say. But I believe that there is no one scenario to this. That's why I can't give a concrete situation, concrete response to that. There's no one scenario to that. So there might be different reasons or different matters that may have a reason why such situation will play out. So I think that's that's where I will leave it at that. Okay, now Becky is saying, how about when a candidate CV is not updated, but during the interview section, the candidate can answer all the questions asked about the role, and can the candidate be considered? Okay, my question is, there are exceptions to this. Take for instance that this candidate provides a profile like a CV, and this CV is let's say I'm using myself as an example now. I took up a job and I'm working at a particular place as a sales executive since 2016 till date. As I just sent that, I sent the CV, but maybe I sent that CV last year. But maybe because that's I did well in your interview last year, even though I did not get the job, and you decided okay to review, start with that particular profile by reaching out to me. Now, maybe I've gotten a new place and you do not have the updated CV. I'm just trying to paint the scenario now. So now you don't have the updated CV. If I come to for that interview, I should be able to say, okay, yes, I have the updated CV. This is where I currently work. If I answer your questions very well in that CV, all you need is for me ask me to give you the updated CV, and that is all. So just ask the person to provide the updated CV, and that is all. The question is, do their profile match the exact place where they that is their profile match exactly what you are looking for? If not, but once they match it, just ask them to provide you with your updated CV, and that is all. Once you have concluded that this particular profile is great, ask them for the updated CV. Okay, I think that answers that. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about. Okay, I think that was the last question today. Okay, so in the absence of any other question, I think that will be all. I think, is there another question because we are bringing this session to a close? All right. So in the absence of any other question, we're going to close the session and we meet for this final class tomorrow. All right. Enjoy your day. Thank you.